Dyad is a Bulgarian film that tells the story of Diada, a fiery, proactive and self-sufficient teenager who will do anything to raise enough money to join her mother in America. For those of you who have followed this channel for a while, first of all, thank you, and second of all, this choice of film to review may seem like a bit of a curveball. However, although I am British, I grew up in England, my family is Bulgarian, and much of my experience of the world is informed by both of these cultures simultaneously. With that in mind, Dyad's premise moved me, and I was intrigued to watch a piece of modern Bulgarian cinema, especially because I worked with the main actress Margarita Stojkova on a screen acting course in London. Also, the director Yana Titova is quite well known in Bulgaria for her previous feature film, Doza, Щастие, or A Dose of Happiness, and the popular TV series Откраднат, Живот, or Stolen Life. But before I get further into it, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and switching on notifications, as it really helps us out. One of the things I find interesting about Bulgarian cinema is that the films that people usually bring up in conversation are from an apparent golden age between the 1960s and 1980s, and reviews of anything newer always include someone reminiscing about the good old days. I'm not sure how this attitude affects contemporary Bulgarian filmmakers, but it's just an observation I thought I'd share. I also get the impression that there's a certain propensity for misery as a subject. This comes from talking to people, from seeing what is shown in cinemas and on TV, from reading reviews, and also from going to film festivals and watching films from other Eastern European or Balkan countries. This side of Europe has a turbulent and rich history, but in current times it's definitely on the more financially struggling side of Europe. And there's this feeling, this longing for change, that's been there for as long as I can remember. This longing, inspired also by the fall of communism, is what brought about mass immigration in the 90s and early noughties, from people seeking better ways to provide for their families in other countries. Ironically, this then leads to a longing to go back home and encourage the next generation to do so as well. This is the background to Dyad, which is set in 2011. Our teenage protagonist Diada is trying to make enough money to buy a ticket to go to America, both to study art and also to join her mother, who has already immigrated there. She's created a website where she posts pictures of her underage schoolmates and organizes dates with presumably older men. She also engages in these activities with her schoolmates and teachers for money, all in the hope that every despicable thing she's done can be justified as a means to an end. Now, by giving you all of this background information, I've sort of implied a spoiler, but just in case, here is your spoiler warning if you want to skip ahead a bit. It turns out that she's resorted to doing similarly degrading things as her daughter in order to make ends meet in America. She cannot support her daughter's move, and she's living a life that's no more glamorous than the one she would have had in Bulgaria. Everything that Diada dreams of becoming is a lie. Utilizing this plot, Dyad explores the themes of childhood, womanhood, and motherhood, and to a lesser and more damning extent, fatherhood. I loved how Diada comes face to face with questions that older women around her have already had to answer, especially regarding whether she wants to become a mother, whether bringing a child would add value to this world, and whether that child would choose to be alive at all. Much of her struggle is in not understanding other women's choices. The exploration of motherhood is centered on two characters, Diada's absent mother and her best friend Eva's mother, who has a questionable style of parenting, but who nonetheless is there for her daughter and Diada as well. There's an ongoing reference to how the two friends look alarmingly similar, and I think this connects well to the idiom of don't judge a book by its cover, as when you delve under the surface, you find out how nature and nurture has divided their experiences, and this extends to the two mothers. Dyad reminded me of another Bulgarian film, Viktoria, directed by Maya Vitkova, which cleverly explores similar themes within a Soviet context. At times, I felt that film overindulged in the abstract, but it still manages to keep the acting style quite grounded, whilst I found the acting style in Dyad at times seems a little too showy, especially when it comes to the pupils and teachers at the school. This excludes Ermena Chichikova, who plays the psychiatrist and played the lead in Viktoria, and who is frankly a national treasure. In terms of Dyad's lead, I think Margarita Stoikova carries the film phenomenally, given that this is her first big part. I am a little biased as I worked with her for 3 weeks and know what she's capable of, however I do think that she has a great grasp on when to allow her character to vent her emotions and when to keep it bottled in. This is especially important when playing teenagers, as their public and private lives are often so disconnected, and who, as an age group, are particularly prone to explosions of anger. Her co-star Petra Czernorechkova, who plays Eva, was convincingly bratty. I was yearning for her to stop being so self-absorbed and just help her friend out, but I can also understand her need to distance herself from someone who was spiraling out of control and focus on her older boyfriend, as from a social standpoint, that just benefits her image more. Sadly, it seems Diada has no one to turn to, and I think the SATs teacher is the only example of someone showing her any kindness. It's brutal, but I could empathize with her situation just because I know people who really struggle to form meaningful relationships before becoming an adult, and even sometimes afterwards. However, as wonderfully as I think this film presents its female characters, I think it does its male characters a disservice, which is admittedly a nice change from the more common issue of the opposite happening. The men were seemingly all predatory, boozed up and bitter, and swept under the rug of toxic masculinity. In many ways, I get it. The emphasis on traditional family structures, patriarchal values, and stereotypically masculine and feminine roles are a part of Bulgarian culture, as they are to some extent in every other culture, depending on where you go in any given country. As we all should know by now, historically some men's abhorrent behavior has gone unpunished, and this is a problem that is by no means solved and should definitely still be policed. However, within the realms of Dyad, I think there was opportunity to discuss this subject matter with a bit more nuance. This reminds me of Thor: Love and Thunder, in which the treatment of Thor's mental health and consequent physical problems differs vastly from the treatment of Jane's life-changing diagnosis. The former, the protagonist of our story, is made fun of by Korg's voiceover, and his struggles are played for laughs, whilst the latter is treated with respect and admiration when she finds a way to deal with her diagnosis. I hated this disparity in empathy, where it seemed like this emotionally vulnerable man was being put down by a strong woman. But this is not equality, this is woke feminism, which thrives on putting down all men and raising all women, regardless of how obnoxious or rude or unworthy of praise they may be. It's the same disparity that I feel hurts Dyad, because the men add this bitter taste to the film, and I think it would have worked well without, in particular, the scenes between the PE teacher and Diada. Yes, he can be one of her clients, and yes, he can be a despicable character, but the sheer amount of screen time that he gets was just distracting me from Diada's immediate mission. Similarly, the dad character had some lines where we could really feel there's some residual affection for his daughter, which goes somewhat unexplored. I'm left questioning, why does he have so much resentment? What happened between him and Diada's mother? And in the moment where some clarity could have been achieved, it's ruined by a tropey drunk guy presentation. Even the gynecologist is indifferent and can't offer this poor girl one kind word. Now, this may be TMI, however, when I was a teenager, I had hormonal problems and I felt utterly ignored by several gynecologists in the UK, so I went to see one in Bulgaria and he finally listened to me, even with my funny Bulgarian accent. Obviously, it depends on individual experiences, and I only talk about this so passionately because I hate to see Bulgaria, a country that is underrepresented in cinema and misunderstood generally, be cast in a bad light through these supporting characters, when it doesn't need to be and it's not absolutely necessary. to the plot. Now on the technical side, I loved the small time frame of the film. I think it gave a real urgency to the action as the culmination of Dyada's likely years of saving and planning came to fruition. The conversation she has with her mother is absolutely heartbreaking, however the sound design was rather distracting as there was a totally inappropriate cavernous quality to the echo in the Skype call. It's an interesting choice not to have a score, and I only noticed it after I read a review that mentioned it. I think it's probably testament to the quality of the editing in creating a pace of action that is compelling enough to not need rescuing with a score. It also puts a lot more pressure on the performances, and I think Margarita was able to work those silences really well. Overall, Dyad movingly explores womanhood through the eyes of a troubled yet determined teenager. It gives a thought-provoking perspective on the immigrant life in showing that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe and switch on notifications so you don't miss future videos, and comment below with your thoughts on the film. Is this something that you've watched or maybe will watch now? And should I do more indie film reviews? For more film content, feel free to follow us on Letterboxd and TikTok. Links in the description. Otherwise, this has been Tea Break Film Reviews. My name's Michelle and I hope you have a great day.